The poor are not poor because they are not intelligent. The poor are not poor because they are foolish. The Kenyan poor are poor because they are being robbed. And we even hold another more radical position, is that to be rich in this country is a very elusive project. It is not about genuine business. Now we are told there is going to be a government of national unity. Unity for who and in whose interest?
And today, right here on Citizen Digital, we hang out with an activist, a revolutionary, a politician. He has so many names, and he actually does look like a revolutionary. Some people say he does look like Samora Machel. I don't know what you think about it. You've definitely seen him on Twitter. He's been arrested. He's been in the streets as well. He's still doing his thing, and he's also not just a politician or a budding one. He's also the vice chair of the Communist Party of Kenya. His name is Booker Ngesa right here on Citizen Digital for the first time, hanging out with Kabuga. Let's get to hear what he has to say about the state of the nation, the Gachagua impeachment. Are we going back to the streets, the Ruto administration? It's a lot of things going on, and we need a mind like his right now at this point in time. Welcome to the show, my brother. How are you? This is nice to see you, man.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Kabuga. And
Kabuga.
Kabuga. Yes.
Karibu sana kwa show, baba. Uko aje?
Niko salama.
Nakucheki.
Yes.
You do look you look like a revolutionary actually. Do people tell you that outside there, like the whole dreadlocks, the whole beard thing, sorry, the whole
I think
is it intentional?
This is very intentional.
Okay.
And also it reflects the disparities between the normal political discourse and the future political discourse. And also from the Communist Party of Kenya, all of us look up to some people that came before us. For example, if you talk about the fight for independence in Kenya, you remember the immortal portrait of Dedan Kimathi. So everybody who fights for a just cause in this country would like to reach the level of consciousness of Dedan Kimathi. For us in the revolutionary movement, we also have the people we look forward to. For example, in the African continent, like you rightfully put it, is Amilcar Cabral. We have Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. We have the Agustino Neto. We have Thomas Sankara. But even outside the continent, we still have people that also continue to inspire our revolutionary capabilities, that we burn, to not just to emulate them, but even to surpass their thinking and how they advance the pro-people's camp. For example, we have the fallen comrade Fidel Castro. We have Che Guevara, So the mood in the revolutionary is always to try to look forth to the people that actually came before you, not just in terms of, because some people will put a T-shirt, but it's their thinking, it's their action. Because for me, I think it's not just about the dressing. To be a revolutionary, it's not just about the outlook.
It's
to be a revolutionary, yes, in fact, more importantly, you have to put people at the center of your struggle. In fact, we say in the Communist Party of Kenya, we are people-centric, in the sense that you must permanently and unconditionally love the people and always be prepared to pay the highest price for them.
How long has that party existed in Kenya? How old is it, and how deep is it? Is it a Nairobi party? Is it a national party?
Kabuga, the Communist Party of Kenya is a product of the struggle of the Kenyan masses. Remember, if I am to put you a bit in history, the 1990, we had what we are calling anti-communist laws. In fact, we always brag as the Kenyan nation that the 2010 constitution is the most progressive. Actually, for the members of the Communist Party of Kenya, it's not just about something we say about, because it is only the 2010 constitution that has given life for the Communist Party of Kenya to exist in legal perspective. That means a registrable party that can compete for political power. But before that, the Communist Party was banned in Kenya. We used to have underground organizing around communist movement. And you could remember certain intellectuals. For example, Ngugi wa Thiong'o is one of the ideologues of the legs, of the left, like the communist left, that was arrested and is still in political exile even to date, even though the circumstances have since changed. The Chief Justice Emeritus, for example, Willy Mutunga, was an underground in terms of communist organizing, and even other prominent political leaders. For example, you look at Yusuf, the current MP actually of Kamkunji, and many other comrades, even within the ODM or the UDA network, they were products of the underground communist movement. But from 2010, we did not exist as the Communist Party of Kenya. In fact, I was a member of the Social Democratic Party of Kenya, which later changed its name in 2019 to become the Communist Party of Kenya, to reflect also the open democratic space that the 2010 Constitution has given us, because there was no reason to hide. Remember, people like Onyango Law were being arrested just because they read the Communist Manifesto. But the current democratic space and the civic space that has been open is that Kenya is a truly democratic country, and it welcomes as diverse ideas as possible. And that is why the Communist Party of Kenya exists. And we always say, when we are invited, that without the Communist Party of Kenya, there is no democracy in Kenya, because all other political parties are capitalist. We are the only antithesis to them. So without the Communist Party of Kenya, then Kenya is a dictatorship of capitalism. But the existence of Communist Party of Kenya brings the true democracy as envisaged by the founders of the Constitution 2010.
Well, would you tell us maybe what are the ideals of the Communist Party? What are your ideals really? What would your manifesto look like, read like? What do you believe in as a Communist Party?
You know, in terms of running a society, there are two broad and wide schools of thought. There are people who believe that for a society to be run in a stable manner, there are a few people, normally businessmen, billionaires, that come together to form a political class to run the affairs of that country. Now the debate is, when you have these few billionaires, are they running the affairs of the country in the interest of the majority or in the interest of themselves? Now the Communist Party of Kenya comes up with the correct position that if you have only a few brokers, billionaires, that don't produce anything in Kenya, but are relying on their political power for their only source of livelihood, then they can only manage the affairs of the country in their own interest. In fact, it ties in neatly from the rhetoric of what Gachagua says, that Kenya is, a shareholding exercise, that a few people that come together actually advance the interest of their own self by managing the Kenya National Project.
Okay.
Yes. But now the Communist Party of Kenya says, wait a minute, we can also have to reorganize our politics based from the real bottom up, not the one that President William Samoei sold us as a lie, where the majority of the Kenyan people can come together, mainly the working class, who continue to create wealth, but they never benefit from the products of what they produce, and the majority of the peasants that produce the food that they will not consume. And I could give you a good example. If you come from Nakuru and you are driving to Nairobi, you find these people that sell their wares. They sell very beautiful carpets, handmade. They are products of their work. But you want to tell me, Kabuga, how is it possible that if you go to these people's houses, you don't get these good carpets in their houses? It basically means that the wealth that is created in the hands of the majority only finds its meaning in the rich man's house. So the Communist Party of Kenya's ideal is that it wants to mobilize the people who produce wealth in this country, which are the workers. It wants to mobilize the people who produce food, which are the peasants, in form of a political instrument to seize political power from the people who actually have hijacked the politics of our country, mainly through rampant corruption. Because remember, even though I don't know the interpretation of the minority, but the interpretation of the majority is that the Kenyan democracy is the democracy of money bags. Even now, if I want to contest for a political seat, if I don't have money, who can I turn to? Because the politics of Kenya is democracy based on money. So that means the politicians, what they do is they try, it's like an auction. They invest money with hope that they will be able to get back their money. But how do you get your money after using your money for political project, mainly bribery? The only way to get that money is through budgeted corruption. It is through cutting deals. So the Communist Party of Kenya manifesto states that the poor in this country, in fact in a more radical way, the poor are not poor because they are not intelligent. The poor are not poor because they are foolish. In fact, the poor, the Kenyan poor, are poor because they are being robbed. And we even hold another more radical position, is that to be rich in this country is a very elusive project. It is not about genuine business. The people who are rich in this country, we can know that if their ancestors or their grandfathers or their parents did not steal on their behalf, they will have not given them the foundation. But for you and me who inherited poverty, we try to work as hard as we can. But how is it possible that not just you die on poverty, your children, your grandchildren? So the Communist Party of Kenya is bringing a new dispensation to empower the majority of the Kenyan people in the national Kenyan project.
Do we have any, are there any plans for you maybe to vie for a seat in 2027, to actually be actively involved in politics? Because now you have a good idea, very beautiful, brilliant ideas, but do we have any of you actually in these power systems who can actually do the changes that you're talking about? Are you coming? Are you getting there?
In fact, to tell you the honest truth, is that if things were going as planned, I was meant to be the member of parliament of Game constituency under the Communist Party of Kenya. Only that due to the greed of a few people, because you know the Communist Party of Kenya is also have its own contradictions within the party. And I could tell you a bit of it, because last time when I prepared myself to vie for the member of parliament in Game constituency, the ruling class in these countries were not happy with such ideas. So basically the operatives within Kenya Kwanza, particularly led by President William Samoei Ruto, came and bought our General Secretary, Benedict Washira. And I had to go to court to ask for permission to vie with the political party that I built. And finally the time went overboard, and I could not vie under the Communist Party of Kenya at that time. So for a political project, the Communist Party of Kenya has its eyes on the ball, that we are not just a political party to talk. We also want to take political power and to roll out our own political program to try and defend the future of this country. So indeed, even come next election, whenever it comes, earlier or in 2027, we will slot in candidates that will contest for political power to change the political landscape in this country. In fact, next month, we have one of the biggest national congress that is going to be held on the 16th and the 17th for the Communist Party of Kenya. And the primary task will be to review the kind of political organizations we've done, and also to punish those people that masqueraded as the Communist Party of Kenya leader.
Today we stand against President William Samoei Ruto.
I saw you in the streets last time. We were in the streets, all of us in the streets. I mean, it was crazy. June 25th, I mean, you know, Sabaa, Nane Nane, actually, you went to the streets. Do you feel like we achieved anything so far, so good?
First of all, it's important to acknowledge that to get anything from the ruling class, it always must involve a street protest. The ruling class must be forced to give concessions to the poor of the poorest. And this is not just something about the Gen Z pricing or you know, some people, I listen to them and they tell me that, please, President William Samoei Ruto has given concessions. He has even listened to you. And this finance bill, the IMF-backed finance bill that was in force has been put aside. But as we come from a different school of thought that President William Samoei Ruto did not actually give concession to the people, but the people, through street protest, forced him to give those concessions. And in fact, he did not give those concessions because he loved the Kenyan people. He gave those concessions to actually protect his regime and to extend his stay in political power. So why is it that the young people have to come out of the streets to be martyred by the very state that was meant to protect them, and then only after that they can be given a lip service? So must say that we have actually achieved certain things through the street protest. But it is not complete, because what we are doing is getting just look at the common demand of the people that we need a national healthcare project that is funded by the Kenyan taxpayers. Do we have it? No. In fact, the Shia has even come up to introduce and enroll the gains of the NHIF. The other thing that the people in the street were talking about is overtaxation. We want President William Samoei Ruto at that time to tax not where the people are, because it's not necessarily, and I've had certain economists in their analysis saying that we need to widen the tax bracket. To widen the tax bracket, it basically means that you want to tax the majority of the Kenyan people. But the logic where we come from the Communist Party of Kenya, we're saying that the money is not necessarily where people are. So we are telling that President William Samoei Ruto at that time that he should tax where the money is. Are we taxing where the money is? No. So it basically means that we have a long way to go. Also, one of the biggest campaigns that we are putting on the street, in fact, it was about digital taxes, where the young people, one of the biggest crises in this country is that we don't have employment. The young people, we don't have industries. So the young people have embraced, they try to be ingenious by creating content and trying to monetize them to earn money. But now the President William Samoei Ruto and his regime wanted to tax the young people. And that is why we saw a social explosion with the celebrity and the young people in the streets. So has the digital taxation been removed? Only partially. Now we can talk more and more, including the education. But what we are saying that now it is the time to reconsolidate the gains in the street and to prepare for the second battle.
What do you mean second battle? Are we going back to the streets?
The only language that the oppressor understands is the street action. There is nothing that we will get through negotiating, because for us we've come to this correct conclusion that the Kenya Kwanza government is beyond reform. We cannot ask President Ruto to stop killing us. He's killing us every day. We cannot ask President William Samoei Ruto to stop abducting us. I was personally abducted. Bom Jagi was the highest person who was abducted for 32 days. Even today, we still have abductions taking place in the streets. So this is a government that is beyond reform. We cannot ask them to implement a universal health care. So the only language that we must continue to mobilize the Kenyan people is not to negotiate with a criminal entity that continues to kill the people who entrusted them with power to protect them. So when we say the season 2 is coming, we are only saying that the same way that this government, because sometimes people ask, how is it possible that you're able to sustain this momentum? But it is because of the mistakes that this government makes. In fact, we always say that the main mobilizer for us in the street, we just want President William Samoei Ruto to speak on TV. Then we know the people's anger will go up, because this is a man that has lost what you call public trust. So anything he says in the media, or anything when he opens the mouth, nobody trusts him. Remember, last week he says he has rolled out a universal healthcare project. He has rolled out a digital empowerment project. He has rolled out during the environmental day a green energy to employ the people. But in actual sense, he's only lying. And the people that is lying are angry at him. So what we are saying is that when we talk about season 2, is to clearly demonstrate that we are consolidating the gains in the street, and we will be back to the street more organized and more focused.
A lot of people, yeah, that's nice. A lot of people are saying they're losing trust in a lot of, leaders, in a lot of activists. Maybe there's you, there's Morara, there's Kasmuel Makure. And people are saying, should we trust you? Should we go to the streets? Should we let you lead us? What would you say, actually, what would you comment currently on the work of Morara and what also Kasmuel is doing? There are so many criticisms about him online. Do you have something to say? Are people also hitting you as well?
First of all, we always call that the leadership that emerged during the Gen Z uprising. Each of this person had a special thing that people saw in them. But it doesn't mean that they had the credentials to lead a pro-people government. It basically means that people can identify Booker, for example. But Booker has to catch up with the people's expectations. That Booker is a good activist. He defends the people. But that activism is not the only qualification for leadership. It basically means that Booker has to demonstrate that he has ability that can lead, organize a political entity that can win elections or win political power through alternative means to serve the majority of the Kenyan people. And that means that the Gen Z leaders must go an extra in terms of meeting the people's expectation, because popularity is just like celebrity. And it has to be harnessed. That is why you see, even in terms of talent industry, when you become popular out of certain talents, you have to have a manager to try and reorganize your life to meet, the expectation of your fans, and anything else. So I will say that even as we're in the street, for example, now from the Communist Party of Kenya, we are leading, at least at the core, a coalition to try and demonstrate to the Kenyan people that even though in the street we are activists, but we have also genuine credential to lead this country. Now, if you look at Kasmuel, for example, how did Kasmuel arise to represent the collective interest of the Gen Z uprising? Kasmuel is a brilliant young man. He is well-spoken. He even knows how to dress, not like me as an activist. But Kasmuel needs to continue to catch up with the expectation of people. And now the biggest challenge for Kas now was to demonstrate to the people that he's not just a person who speaks. He can also reorganize, a political instrument that can take political power to take this country to the next stage. But in my opinion, I think Kasmuel is still redeemable, even though he has made mistakes. And people, sometimes when we sit as leaders or activists, we can have a false consciousness that people don't understand things. But when, for example, the biggest backlash was when Kasmuel went for the public participation, and he came out on live TV and he was saying, no, Gachagua must go. It is true, Gachagua must go. But that is not the popular opinion among the majority of the Kenyan people. The Kenyan people look at the Kenya Kwanza bus, including the driver, which is William Samoei Ruto, the conductor, which they call the, Rigiji. And even now they have even increased that kuna abiria ndani. These passengers are the MPs. And there is some two-ton boys they have even called Madividi and Weta. And even the hired mechanic, which is Raila, who is trying to sustain the bus. So the Kenyan people are saying this entire bus must fall. But if they see Kasmuel as representing their collective interest, but then Kasmuel wants to take only one section to the other, then people get angry with him. But for me, I encourage him that Kasmuel can redeem himself and only accept the fact that his celebrity status in the street can only be supported by a popular initiative from below, and not through meeting. Because remember, there are photos of him splashed on the social media with the people we call the enemies camp, the people who have killed people in the streets, the people who have not just killed people but extrajudicially killed people in the streets. So people are angry at Kasmuel. If I was Kasmuel, and I will reflect about my life and how I became the people's darling. And, to lead people also need humility. So he is not beyond redemption. I call out Comrade Kasmuel to review his ways, be true to the people, and do everything possible to unite the people's camp. Because anytime I criticize Kasmuel, I feel bad about it, because that is what the enemy wants us to do. And if we talk of Morara, I think Morara is a gifted person. Seriously gifted. In fact, the way he used to imitate President William Samoei Ruto's lies was very unique in a sense. So if you ask me, how did Morara come to the limelight? We have to be clear. It was not about selling a manifesto that is pro-people. It was not about being a revolutionary. But he was able to pick one failure of Kenya Kwanza government and then start to demonstrate it through the Vampire Diaries. Now, with his voice, with his imitation, he became a darling of the people. And now I congratulate him, because he's one person that has moved even one step further to institutionalize a political party to demonstrate to the Kenyan people. Now, when I talk to Morara and even his people, my honest analysis always be, I like what you have done in terms of unveiling the political party. I also like that you now take the most important task, that without an organization, there cannot be political power. How does the Communist Party of Kenya work with inject political party? How does the Communist Party of Kenya work with other political parties? Like, for example, one of the biggest darling of the GNZ is Comrade Omtata, for example. He leads the National Reconstruction Alliance. So what we are saying, that at the very end of it, the people's camp must get united. So we are either going to get united, one as one political party where they inject the CPK and all other political parties in the people's camp come together, or if that's not possible, then we can come together under coalition of political parties to be able to sweep political power whenever the election is held.
Gachagua is a national conversation right now as you speak. What are your views on that? You already talked about that, Kidogo. Maybe you want to just briefly, your views on that. Are we trying to be, confused, bamboozled by the, the government? And do you think he should go? I know you already said that. What do you think of that?
First of all, the impeachment of Gachagua is how the political ruling class are reacting to the crisis, the Kenyan crisis. Because you see, every time we tell President William Samoei Ruto that we did not go to the street to die so that you cut deals with the opposition on top of the dead comrades that have been martyred. So we had asked for several things. We had said over taxation, we want progressive taxation vis-a-vis the Wyden the widening of the tax bracket. We want to live a life of dignity where we can access healthcare, and our children and our sisters and brothers can access education. This is what we asked for. But the first thing he did was to welcome what he was calling the bread-based government, as now we call it. He calls it the broad-based, because that government is not broad. It is just a government that accommodates tribal leaders who are wealthy from respective tribes. So President William Samoei Ruto is reacting to the crisis in a normal way, in a political way, which will be one of his failures. And one of those reactions is the impeachment of Gachagua. For example, we have had several motions in parliament that does not deal with the interest of the Kenyan people. It is not just Gachagua's impeachment. You and me know that Cherengai, for example, presented a motion in parliament to extend President William Ruto's term. We also have another member of parliament that presented a motion to ban protest and punish people who organize for protests. So everything that the ruling class is doing to react to the current crisis can only extend this crisis. This crisis will not end by the impeachment of Gachagua. In fact, it will be at its peak with the impeachment of Gachagua, because what this regime has decided deliberately to do, because the GNC protests and crisis came out clearly that as a tribalist movement. They are deliberate. They want to return us back to tribal mobilization, the dark era of, the Moi era, and that is what is happening in regard to the impeachment of Gachagua. For example, I come from Siaya, and I contest for political seats in Game constituency in Siaya County. But I was very angry that after this so-called government of national unity that was was birthed, at the backdrop of the blood of my comrades that were killed, the rhetoric when the president visited Nyanza was very, very, concerning, because you could remember the ODM brigade and the Luo elite, for a fact, were only driving one narrative, that it is for the first time that a Luo is running the treasury. It was the first time that the Luos are in government, and it was all tribal rhetoric. But I paused a bit and asked, in fact I was invited here in the TV, and asked, does the Luo community, is it a monolithic? Is it homogeneous? Because we have rich Luos that continue to cut deals with the government. But we also have the poor majority of Luos that doesn't benefit. Just like, for example, the Kikuyos have been in the president in that sense. The Kalenjin have been in the president. But does it mean that if one Kalenjin or one Kikuyu is in government, then the majority of the Kikuyu community are benefiting? When, for example, Kisumu, there is landlessness. The landlessness in Kisumu is not affecting Luos, it's affecting the majority of the Kikuyu people that came to protect Jomo Kenyatta's land. The landlessness, people that are being murdered in Peketoni, in Taita Taveta, are not Taitas. They are not coastal people. So the squatter problem in the Kikuyu community was actually rooted by their very own president. And even in Kalenjin community, sometimes you go to Baringo, people are feeding on wild fruits. The poverty is huge. So all this talk about tribalism, the Communist Party hold its correct position that if racism is a crime that we must fight and defeat, then tribalism is also a crime that we must fight and defeat. And anybody who tries to profile anyone on the tribal lines is the enemy of the Kenyan people and the majority of the young people that are currently fighting a fight of life and death to rescue the motherland and defend their future.
Well, I want you to look at the camera and tell us what next for Booker. What next for you, not for the Communist Party, not for the country. What are you doing next? What are you going next? Where are you going next?
Now, it's important because I have only been able to be where I am as Booker because of the support that I have received from the majority of the Kenyan people. We take this correct stand that only through the support of the people that we can prosper. Booker has a bright future, but not without the support of the Kenyan people. My deliberate appeal is that I will unconditionally love the poor majority of the Kenyan people, to bring a new political dispensation through, at least by deliberate political organizing, and bring the finest patriots, men and women, daughters and sons, the finest patriots of Kenya, to help build the Kenyan national project. That is my appeal.
Well, thank you so much. That was Booker Omole right here, the Communist Party of Kenya Vice Chair. Very outspoken, very eloquent, very brilliant. You can clearly hear him, and you can clearly tell the message is coming from a man who is very passionate about the country. Na amesema tunarudi kwa streets. Lazima kuwe na round 2. So check out for Booker in the streets, and if you see him somewhere, please get close to him, because they don't arrest him. He's way too fast for them. Thank you so much, and this is Citizen Digital once again. My name is Kabuga.